is June 15th. Tyler Yaremchuk, Josh Park, and Nation Dan. No Zach Lang, though. He'd be down there. No Zach Lang, though, as he has taken the day off. He's a busy man getting draft coverage ready at the Nation. So just a three-man show today. Plenty to get to, though, as you can see on the left side. What is common ground for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and the Oilers? We'll talk about that. Some Stanley Cup playoffs talk. We'll go around the rumor mill. As always, we are live on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube as well. So if you got some comments, if you got some questions, you can throw them all there, and we will get to as many as possible. I'm making sure we are live everywhere right now anyways. But anyways, Nation Dan, Josh Park, boys, quiet offseason, but how's everyone hanging on?
Excellent. I just got home from a weekend at the lake, so I'm feeling refreshed and burnt, and I played a lot of golf on Sunday. First time playing 36 holes, and it was terrible.
Terrible?
I just way too much golf, dude. I can't do it. I can't do 36 in one day. It's too much for me.
Was it any best ball or just straight up yourself playing 36 holes?
Well, that was the good thing is first 18 we did. Have you played Wolf Creek right off the Highway 2, Ponoka?
No, I haven't.
So good track, very good track. So they have two courses. The first one we played is like their lesser course. So we just did a 4-man scramble. And then the second 18 we played on their nicer course. We did our own ball, but it was like the day before, though, we were up a little bit too late and out on the water, on the lake and stuff. So I was exhausted.
Best course in Alberta, though, is Cougar Creek.
Yes, shout out to our friends at Cougar.
And the Quarry, because they sponsor the Nation.
Very national, best course in Alberta.
I am playing the Quarry on Sunday, doing a Father's Day round. First time out there in like a long time, so I'm excited.
Guess what, Tyler? I'll be there.
You'll be there? You coming around with drinks? Is that the play here?
Yeah, I'm the beer boy. Come around on the cart, sell you beer. No, I'm just kidding.
I just want to say hello to all my Habs friends that I've been making over the last week in all of the little clips we've been making of State of the Nation and Oilers Nation Radio. I have some real big fans from Montreal of mine.
You are pro Habs, though, right? Like you are tired of writing them off, are you not?
No. Oh. I think they're done.
Oh, you think they're done?
I guess like it was a fun story, and it was cool to watch them play good hockey against the North Division. But what's unfortunate for us in the North Division is that they are just going to show up so poorly against this Vegas team. The reality is just set in that they just aren't at the echelon of the New York Islanders and the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Vegas Golden Knights. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, I don't think they are either, and I don't even think that's necessarily like the North Division sucked all year. I just think we're in the Final Four. Like, there's some legitimate contenders here. Vegas is a legit cup contender. We've known that for a few seasons now, never mind a few months or since the start of this year. So I just think it comes down to that. Vegas is just a rock-solid hockey team. They got good depth up front. Their blue line is just unbelievable, man. Like, you're throwing out Theodore, Petrangelo, Martinez. You can't compete, and I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if that series only goes like 5 games and it wraps up there. On the other side of things,
what if it's a sweep though?
Then it could be a sweep. That wouldn't stun me either. Like it just honestly wouldn't. The one thing that's going to be interesting with that is they're playing in front of 18,000 in Vegas, and then they have to go back to playing in front of 2,000 at the Bell Center. That contrast in the home and away games in that series is going to be fascinating to watch. Just quickly, my take on the other series. The Islanders had to play like damn near perfect hockey to squeak out a 1-goal win over the Lightning. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if Tampa Bay responds with a win here tonight. Josh Park, what are you thinking of the Final Four so far?
The biggest thing that I think is funny, and I made a tweet about it last night, is if you're Cole Caulfield, your first taste at a full NHL arena was the Stanley Cup semifinal in Las Vegas last night. Like, could you imagine the nerves that kid would have had? And then he scored his first playoff goal in that game. But man, I agree with Dan. I think the Habs, unfortunately, the Cinderella story is going to come to an end here. You know, you got to be careful when you talk about the Habs now. Kind of got to bite your tongue considering what they've done so far in the playoffs. But honestly, if it was a 4-game sweep by Vegas, I would not be that surprised. Vegas is too deep, like you mentioned, Tyler, on the back end. They have too much talent. You saw how really engaged and involved their defenders were last night. Like what, 3 different defensemen scored a goal for the Knights last night?
Nick Holden, St. Albert product, former Shirt Park Crusader. Yep. Shout out Nick Holden.
Nick Holden scored a goal, a nice goal by Nick Holden too. But you'd like to see guys like Josh Anderson and Tyler Toffoli try to push the train for this team and see if they could maybe squeak out 1 win in this series. But yeah, I don't necessarily see this going anywhere near good for the Montreal Canadiens. But I like Josh Anderson. I was watching him last night. I know he hasn't scored a goal in like 7 games, but man, what would a guy like that do for the Edmonton Oilers? Just a big power forward. Oh,
he just doesn't. He's too inconsistent for me. Like, I watched him a lot in Columbus, and he gets hurt. There's too many long stretches where he doesn't score. And that's, we'll get to some offseason names here in just a second. But Dan, you predicted on ONR that you think the Islanders can beat the Lightning. You standing true to that with them up 1-0? Yeah, absolutely. No reason to switch
I don't think that. I think you're right in your assessment of that first game. That was a pretty perfect effort by the Islanders, and they won 2-1. Granted, that garbage goal power play 6-on-4, that's just like almost automatic for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So you could say it was a 2-goal win, and I wouldn't be too upset about it. But yeah, I picked the Islanders at the start of this whole thing. Don't look at the rest of my bracket, but my champion is the New York Islanders. And I just feel like Barry Trotz, with that kind of a team where he's actually got some talent up front as opposed to, spare parts, he has the system created and in place where these guys can be comfortable in any situation. They can be versatile in every situation. And when you look at the 3 of the 4 teams in the Final Four, they lack that top end talent. And it's just a lot of guys that you can't really pick one of them to shut down because you got 6 other guys that could score a goal for them. And so it is a fascinating kind of trend that we've seen happen now in the last 2 years. You'd even say that about Dallas, really. As much as they have good names there, I don't think Jamie Benn blew the doors off of anybody last year in the playoffs. But it's been exciting to watch. That is a team that I think is designed to shut down a Tampa Bay Lightning, and I mentioned that before on ONR that I feel like last year's experience is going to help them there as well.
Let's go to the Twitch chat here where Davinsky said 2K Habs fans is greater than 18K Knights fans. My man, I don't think you have ever been to the Fortress because that building is absolutely rocking. It is insane. I mean, Josh, have you been to a game in Vegas?
Yeah, I went to the game. It would have been 2 Novembers ago when the Oilers won. I believe it was 3-1. I know that you guys did. This is before I worked for the Nation. You guys did the Nation vacation on the second time that the Oilers played in Vegas that year. I went in November, obviously the December before COVID started. Yeah. And they won, I believe, 3-1 that night. McDavid had a nasty goal where he walked out from the corner. So many Oilers fans there. And just an absolute blast. Oh,
that barn though, everything from like the walk up to the arena to, it's the perfect blend of like a modern arena that's still like small in size almost, where the atmosphere is just insane. Anyone discounting Vegas as not a hockey market is just flat out wrong. We had Derek Englund on the DFO Rundown this week. Go check that out. DFO Rundown, new episodes every Monday and Friday. And he talked about how you can't go anywhere without Golden Knights license plates, jerseys in every restaurant, like wherever you go, there is Golden Knights stuff everywhere. That's a market that is, as Brad Stepanko says, simply, Vegas is amazing for hockey. It absolutely is.
Yeah, and the biggest thing that sorry, go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to say, Josh, when it comes to Canadian, just the difference for me between Canadian arenas and Vegas is the volume. It's when you walk into that arena, you already can hear just the thumping, pounding sound. And there doesn't have to be a fan in the stands at that point because they pump up the noise. In Canada, I remember specifically going to the Metro Center in Halifax and having people be like, it's too loud in here. The music is up too loud. And it was, but why do you care? It's 2.5 hours of your life where you're supposed to be excited and jacked up. And that's all Vegas does is excited and jacked up.
Let's stick on the chat line here. Dangerous Wade. A lot of American markets have done a great job of promoting hockey, Vegas included, and 100%. Like Tampa Bay, the way they bought in during their cup run, like that during not just their cup run, I should say, because I was played in the bubble, but the year before that, even like that building gets going in the playoffs. They all do it. It's fantastic stuff.
Okay, do we have 2 seconds, Tyler? I gotta share a story. So I went to a game. This is bad. I went to a game at Amalie Arena in Tampa Bay. It would have been 2018 or the year that the Caps won the Cup. Okay. So the year that the Caps won the Cup, my second team is the Washington Capitals. So I was down in Tampa Bay. I went to a game with my parents, and I was wearing a Caps jersey. Yeah. So in Tampa Bay, it's a pretty big, good hockey market as well, and there was not a lot of Caps fans there. So I was sticking out like a sore thumb walking around wearing my big Alexander Ovechkin jersey. So I'm sitting in the lower bowl, and there's my dad warned me. My dad says to me, do not say anything stupid. Don't do anything stupid that's going to get you into trouble. Like, just don't be an idiot. So I'm sitting there, and I'm losing my mind, and I'm cheering and stuff. And Tampa Bay goes up 1-0. And there's this couple sitting in front of me, and there's like 4 of them. And there's this girl and this guy, and they're cheering. They're giving it to me all game. So then Tampa scores. And I'm fired up. I start losing my mind because I'm mad because I obviously cheering for the Capitals. And this girl turns around and starts giving it to me, like just ripping into me. And I look at my dad and I look at her and I go, "Oh yeah, big Lightning fan. Eh? Who's your favorite player?" And like, because like, you know, when you're a lot of the fans in Tampa Bay are just there for the good time and like they know a lot about hockey. So I'm like, "Oh yeah, who's your guys' favorite player?" And the girl looks at the guy, and they lost it on me. Like I thought I was getting a Donnybrook with this girl. It was terrible, but it was pretty fun. It was a good time.
Dangerous Wade says Josh Park was 14 in 2008. All right, we're gonna move over to the Twitch chat or the Twitter chat here, where we got some trade talk to throw into the mix. Kozak_C. I got a question. If the Leafs are retaining on Marner, what do you give up? JP Bear plus what? I'll say this. If they trade Marner, that's a big if. 1, I don't think they're retaining money on Mitch Marner, and I don't think they'd really have to. And 2, they're doing it because they're getting a stud defenseman in that deal. And there's just not a fit there with Edmonton. Like, this is the conversation I have with Marner, with anyone who thinks like, oh, can the Oilers load up an offer for like Jack Eichel or something like that? The Oilers don't need $10 million plus forwards. That if you're going to spend assets and money on like a Marner or an Eichel or anyone making that kind of coin, you're better off spending the assets on like Sam Reinhart, signing him for 7 mil, and then going and getting someone else for 4 mil. Like, I think we're all in agreement here. We're not holding our breath on the Oilers going out and getting like a star on the trade market, right?
Well, go ahead, Dan.
Look at the top 4 in the playoffs right now. Like, and I'm not saying that you structure your entire team around what past success has done, but you can't look at those teams and say, yeah, Edmonton can compete with them if they just add a Mitch Marner. Like, they have to be a far more complete team to be able to match up with these teams and these lines. If Montreal puts Danault up against McDavid and Draisaitl, what happens then? You know, what's the next step for us? And that has to be the answer, because we can't keep loading up on these guys that have massively bloated contracts that then make you so you can't fit anybody else with any kind of skill into your lineup, and you're just putting spare parts below them. So it's dumb, it's silly. We got to get off of that train.
The high-end skill is there. They need depth, and that's kind of the bottom line here. Good depth, too. I'm not saying like they need $1 million players. Like, they need some $4 or $5 million players. You just need a couple of them.
They need guys that can slide everybody down in the lineup. That's the big thing, right? If one guy is not having to punch above his weight class and actually is punching below his weight class, that's good.
Well, one thing I thought was super interesting is that we learned – or something that came out a few days ago, is that Carey Price is the first $10 million plus contract to ever win a first round in the NHL playoffs, or first round or second round, I don't remember. But you know, I agree with you, Tyler. I don't think the issue for the Oilers is $10 million players. I just think it's those, you know, middle guys that are making in the $5 to $7 million range that can really, you know, be contributors in this lineup. You see guys like McDavid and Draisaitl, even RNH. Obviously, they're going to contribute where they do, but you know, other than that, on the Oilers, just a lot of fringe guys that are making in the, you know, $800,000 to $3 million range that aren't going to help make the difference for this team. We got to get some of those guys that are in the $5 to $7 million range that are really going to be contributors night in and night out, and are going to help, you know, ease the books when it comes to the money that we're spending.
A couple comments from DangleDump94 on Twitter. Living in the Hammer, going to games in Toronto is a joke. The fans are lame, no energy. I mean, that's the old platinum seat thing in Toronto, right? Like, they're never there for the first 8 minutes of every period because they're buying $14 cocktails. All right. He also has a couple. Yeah, he also has a couple of trade comments here. Reinhart would be the dream to play with McDavid, and hopefully Nuge resigns. I agree. Like, Reinhart, it's going to cost you a lot. And I mean, the dude scored 25 goals in 40-some games this year. He's going to cost you $6.5 to $7.5 million probably, and a first-round pick and a prospect to acquire. So it would take a lot to get him, but that's a guy I'd love. He'd be number one on my list. I'm just not sure if the Oilers are going to spend that kind of assets and money on one player this offseason. If for you guys, who's number one in terms of the forwards on the market? Who do you like, Josh?
Sam Reinhart was one guy that I was talking with Jay about a while ago. He seems like the type of guy that would fit perfectly into this lineup when it comes to, one of those players in that $5 to $7 million range that I talked about that could really be a contributor and, fill maybe that offensive void that we saw Ryan Nugent-Hopkins kind of fall off of this year. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with Nuge, but, a guy like Sam Reinhart that are just, they're not making necessarily the huge dollars that the McDavid Draisaitls will be making, but they're contributing on a necessary level that's going to be good, cost on the dollar for what they're going to bring to this team. So, yeah, Sam Reinhart is one guy I've definitely looked at. I like the idea of Sam Reinhart in this lineup. I think he would be a really good fit in the top six.
Dan?
10 years and 1 day younger than me, Jake DeBrusk is a guy that I would love to see us go out and make a transaction for. I don't think the cost is going to be high anymore. And for me, he's that build of a player that has that skill, but also has that sandpaper to him that this lineup still needs more of, and you can't do it at the detriment of your skill anymore. You got to keep trying to bring in guys like that. So yeah, I'd love to see a Jake DeBrusk come in at a reasonable cost of acquisition.
Looking right now at the Bruins situation, DeBrusk is set to make $3.675 next year. Then he's an RFA with arbitration the year after. Bruins GM, I think it was Don Sweeney, who came out today and said priority for them is finding a left-handed defenseman who can play. That's going to be high on their priority list. I don't think Caleb Jones is the impact piece they'd be looking for, but they're clearly looking for something on the left side of their blue line, and I wonder if there could be a trade made there with Caleb Jones, another piece going out, and Jake DeBrusk coming up to Edmonton, especially if Edmonton is kind of resigned to the fact they may lose Jones in the expansion draft anyways. So that's an interesting name. He's a little bit, like you said, Dan, kind of like lower on the impact scale than a guy like Reinhart, but cost-wise, it might almost make more sense and probably is more realistic. Kozak makes sense about Marner. I think Bennett is better than Nuge, TBH. I'm going to disagree with that, and we'll get into the Nuge and Hopkins talk in a while. Like, Sam Bennett has never consistently put together more than, 10 good games in a row in his career? And I get that he's younger, but...
Well, where was he for Florida in the playoffs?
Suspended, taking dumb penalties.
Right. So, I mean, he played well in the last, the 13 games that he had with him after the trade. But, yeah, I don't know. It sucks for Bennett because he's always going to be compared to Leon Draisaitl, I think, in a lot of Oiler fans' heads. Oh, yeah. And so I understand the sentiment there. But, yeah, Nugent Hopkins is the 5-tool player, to steal a term from hockey scouts.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Tyler, I'll ask you one quick question.
Yeah.
If you had to rank it on a percentage-wise, I know it's super unrealistic, but I know there's been a conversation going on around about it. What do you think the percentage of the chance is that the Oilers could take a run and potentially land Alexander Ovechkin?
0.
You think it's realistically 0%?
0.00000000000. He's staying in Washington, man. He's a lifelong Capital. He's representing himself in the negotiation because he knows it's going to get done. Zip 0. It'd be sick. It'd be hilarious. That'd be so much fun to watch. But I just don't think it's going to happen. The Photoshops are great, but I don't think Ovi's coming here.
I agree.
Nugent Hopkins, Elliot Friedman today, and 31 Thoughts. The blog that has a little bit of everything. It's always big news in there. His 17th point out of the 31 was just simply Edmonton and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins are grinding to find common ground. Right now, it is June 15th. These two sides are grinding away. Bob Stauffer has kind of hinted that this next week here, which is kind of known as Pro Scouts week, this is when teams really try to figure out their plans. We saw Carolina say Dougie Hamilton can go negotiate with other teams. Organizations generally like to know what's going on. And I think the Oilers and Nugent-Hopkins, this is sort of the last chance push here before they decide, all right, we're going to go to market and we're not going to talk anymore, or we get a deal done. So Stauffer's been hinting at it for a while. Friedman now throws it in the blog. If they're grinding now, that's a good sign to me. They're going to try to find common ground. I'll start with this question before I follow up with another one. Not what you would want the contract to be, but what do you think common ground looks like, Dan? What's the deal?
Well, I got panned for it about 3 months ago when I said that if his next deal doesn't start with a 6, I'm shocked. And I think that the common ground is somewhere in that early 6 million. It's not, I don't know if it's necessarily like, I think there's a little bit of a raise there from the team more so, but the reality is that he's going to go to market and get some team, whether they can compete or not, is going to offer him a much larger contract. It feels like a Ryan Smith situation to me, where it's just, a guy that maybe we value a little bit more than what his market value should be, but his market value is going to be higher because of those intangibles that you can't necessarily see on the scores.
So you think the dollars start with a 6 and the years are 5 or 6?
Yep. Yeah, I'm not ascribing to this he has to go or he's going to go longer thing right now. I also do believe in my heart of hearts, and I've been preparing myself for quite a while, that he will not be an Edmonton Oiler by the end of this summer.
Josh, what's common ground look like for the Nugent-Hopkins camp and Ken Holland?
I agree with Dan. I think it's probably going to start with a 6. I think that if you're the Ryan Nugent-Hopkins camp, that's what you're looking at. Probably in that 6-2, 6-0 range. I imagine that's what they want. And if you're Ken Holland, I imagine that a realistic deal for you probably starts with a 5. This is really going to come down to Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and whether or not he wants to win with the Edmonton Oilers. Because if you're RNH and you want to hit the open market, 1,000% you're going to get more money than you're going to get in Edmonton. If he wants to go play for the Ottawa Senators, if he wants to go play for the I can't even think of another crappy team right now. Any
Seattle,
other team,
whoever.
If he wants to go play for the Kraken, any other team, if he wants to make his money, he can do it, and he could do it. Like, he could probably get $7 million if he really wanted on the open market. But if you're the Edmonton Oilers, this is about setting yourself up to have money that you can use on other assets coming up this summer and in years to come. And if you're Ken Holland and you're looking at Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and you're not finding common ground, then yeah, it's tough if you're an Oilers fan to see a lifer like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, who's been here since the beginning of, the DOD, walk away. Then yeah, it could happen, but it's really going to come down to RNH and whether or not he wants to be a part of this core coming up in the future here. But yeah, if this deal starts with a 6, I'm not going to be pleased, and it's probably not the best situation for the Oilers. But yeah, I imagine that Ryan Nugent-Hopkins camp probably came to Ken Holland in the initial negotiation and probably said, we want 6-5 or somewhere in that range. So we'll see what happens.
Is my brain fried, or did we sign Hall, Eberle, and Nuge all to $6 million?
So they all got 6 by 6.
They all got 6 by 6, and that was kind of like, at that time, it was a lot. It was a lot for what they had created, and I don't know, it feels like that should have created some kind of goodwill for us, and we have seen none of that goodwill with any of those players, of course, because 2 of them were
traded,
unceremoniously departed from this team. But yeah, I don't know, if you're Ken Holland, obviously you can't really say that because you weren't the GM that signed the deal, but damn, Nuge, I don't know. You've been getting paid $6 million to not do a heck of a lot.
Well, he was almost a point a game last season. He was almost a point a game the year before that. He had 48 and 62 the year before that. These last 3 years, I think he's been a $6 million player.
Yes, that I agree with.
Yeah, he's not an $8 million player. And I think sometimes people go, well, if you're going to give a guy that much money, he needs to be a superstar. And it's well, look who else is on the market. Zach Hyman, Brandon Saad, Blake Coleman, Tatar's lower on that list, and Nuge is in that mix as well. Taylor Hall, I'm assuming he's going back to Boston, but you can even throw him in there. There are legitimately 5 top 6 left wingers on the free agent market this season. And as Brad Stepanko points out in the Twitch chat, how many legit playoff contenders have a lot of cap space? There aren't many. Maybe one of the teams in California, LA or Anaheim, decide to load up this offseason. They might be able to make some hay. But apart from them, there's not a lot of teams with money to spend, and the Oilers are one of those few teams. To answer my own question of what is common ground for the Oilers and Nugent-Hopkins, if we see a deal done in the next 10 days, I think it'll be 5 or 6 years and about $5.75 million. I think Nugent-Hopkins camp is probably looking for about $6.5 million on the open market, and that's probably what their initial ask is. I think the Oilers were closer to $5 million. I don't think Nugent-Hopkins is getting 7 anywhere, even from the Kraken. I think teams with money also just don't want to sign expensive deals like that. I think you'd handcuff yourself for a while. I think one of the numbers will for sure start with a 5, and I think in all likelihood they both would start with a 5 when it comes to the Ryan Nugent-Hopkins extension. So my prediction would be 5 years, $5.8 million a year. And I think that's something both sides should probably be living with. Nugent Hopkins might be sacrificing $400,000 a year of AAV, but you get to stay in Edmonton, you get a chance to win. Like that is worth something. And yeah, I think that's where they ultimately end up. The other thing I wanted to throw out there, we talked about the Hurricanes giving Hamilton permission to go talk to other teams already. And in part, that is hoping they could facilitate a sign and trade if he finds a team that'll give him 7 years, right? And Carolina could get an asset back, whether it's a pick or whatever. Or this opens the door for Hamilton to go to market. And let's go through the hypothetical of, let's say Carolina is like, no, our best offer, Dougie, is 7x7. I don't know if it is. I'm just throwing a number. And Hamilton goes, no, I can beat that. And they go, okay, go to the open market, ask around. If someone will give you 8x7 or 7x8, take it and we'll trade you there. But if not, you know what we're offering. And I wonder if this next push for the Oilers and Nugent Hopkins, if it doesn't go well, would you guys be against the Oilers saying, go ask, go talk to Ron Francis in Seattle, go talk to whoever, go take that chance and be like, man, we're offering you 5.8 over 5 years. If you really think you can beat it, go for the next week and see if you can. Like, I don't see a downside to that.
I don't know. To me, the downside is the goodwill from the team, right? Like if you're, I don't know. I guess it's like the old adage of if you love it, set it free. But for me, I feel like these players' egos are they're so, I don't know. I guess I feel like they're fragile. And so in that, when I heard the news about Dougie Hamilton, first of all, I was shocked because it's not a very common thing for us to hear these days. And then, yeah, you look at it, I guess, like you said, Tyler, I haven't really looked at it like from that angle of, just go out and see if you can find better than what we offered you. But to me, it sounded like, you know what, Dougie, we're not going to get much better for you. So we might as well try and get some assets back in a trade, in a transaction for you. So yeah, I don't know. Before you'd asked the question or before you'd framed it that way, I would have just said no. If you do that, if you make that decision, the team has said set the sail on the ship of you coming back. But yeah, now I'm kind of questioning things. Josh, what about you?
See, the question that I have, Tyler, is you'll know more about this than I do. Why is it so special that Dougie Hamilton gets to have that opportunity, and why is he going to get signed with? Like potentially, hypothetically, why would he not just sign with that team? Why would he sign with the Hurricanes? Is that in order to try to give the Hurricanes an asset back in return? Like what's the added value?
He can get the extra year. So if you re-sign with the team you're currently on, you can get one more year in the deal, right? So you can get that 8th season. So if Hamilton were to go to, and it's a win for everyone. Let's say Carolina's offering him 8 years, $6 million. That's final offer. And they say, go shop around. And if you think you can beat it and you want to walk, go. And Philly goes, yeah, we'll give you 8 years by 7, but we need to acquire your rights to attach the 8th year. Philly also goes, we know we're getting you now. We've locked you up. There's no chance anyone else is outbidding us because we're going to trade for you. It's a signing trade. And Carolina will go, well, shit, we're not beating that deal at any point anyways. And now we're getting a 3rd round pick and a prospect in return for it, right? And everyone in the situation wins. And with the Oilers and Nuge, like if they say, hey, Go ask around, see what you can get. There's a chance Nugent Hopkins goes around and goes, holy shit, no one's offering me more than like 4 years by $6 million. Okay, you know what, Edmonton? 5 by 5.8, good for me. And you can still mend the fence. Like I still don't think it's a lock Hamilton leaves Carolina either.
Yeah, but as UFA, would you not be talking to other teams already, or does the team have to give you permission to do that?
If you're a free agent, you need permission up until like whatever it is, that negotiating window. I think they might have gotten rid of that as well. There might not be.
Okay.
Yeah. So
but
you
Josh,
don't.
if you're my player, I'm your agent, and Tyler's the team that I'm prospectively looking at. I go, Tyler, say hypothetically, I had this guy who would be interested to. He has stats that are comparable to Josh's, and he would be interested in signing for your team at such and such a number. Yeah. What kind of number would you offer back at him? Like, there's all kinds of ways to work around that stupidity. That's why guys sign at 8 a.m. on free agent day, right? It's because they've already talked to the teams and they've already figured out. And one caveat to that 8-year deal, for people that are watching this and maybe didn't see it, Pierre LeBrun dug up that the Seattle Kraken can offer any player an 8-year deal this year as kind of an exclusive for being an expansion team.
And they get a 2-day window as well before the expansion draft to chat with these teams legally and not have it be considered tampering.
The free agents, you mean?
Yeah, the free agents. And that's something Vegas did with Derek Engelland as well, is they kind of called him beforehand, said, hey, we know you're a UFA, but if we were to take you, would you sign here? Blah, 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 blah. He obviously said yes, and that's how that ended up working out. So that's the other thing, too. if you're the Oilers and you give Nugent Hopkins permission now to go talk, and he goes, you know what, I'm sorry, loved it in Edmonton, but I'm going to sign in Seattle. Then Edmonton suddenly goes, well, we know who Seattle's taken. And now your plans become a little bit more clear. You can, whatever, plan the rest of your summer accordingly. But the fact they're still talking right now leads me to believe that Nugent Hopkins doesn't love the idea of going to market, and he's at least strongly wanting to come back here. Like, if they're still trying to make a deal work after a whole calendar year almost of negotiating a deal, if you're in the side of I want Nuge back no matter what, that's positive news today from Elliot Friedman at least.
AKA the bag milk side
yeah,
of the coin.
If you're on the bag milk side of the coin there, if you're on the Josh Park side of the coin, then, well.
Why are you pinning that on me, Tyler?
You've been anti-Nuge all year.
That is not true. I'm not anti-Nuge.
The girl that you fought with when you were 14 at that arena just DM'd me, and she said you said I hate Ryan Nugent-Hopkins.
At the game, that was one of your chirps in Tampa Bay. Yeah. All right, we're gonna wrap this thing up.
I love Nuge.
I'm
pro Nuge at $5 million.
There you go. Thanks to everyone. The Twitch chat was bumping today. Twitter chat as well. Dangle Dump and Kozak_C. I should have gotten the full name there before I did that. But anyway, shout out to everyone who tuned in and chimed in with their comments. Dan, Josh, no Zach, but we'll talk.